Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. Tonight you'll be staying in room 175, Talk to Me, a directorial debut by Danny and Michael Filippo. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we hold the hand of evil and talk to me.
So where'd you get it from anyway?
Apparently it was the hand of someone that could connect with the dead.
I heard it was the hand of a Satanist. And the other hand's just out there.
White people shit, man, I tell you.
All right, let's do this! You know the drill. Say, talk to me.
Talk to me.
Aficionados, and thank you for checking back in. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel immensely, and it's always appreciated. As always, I'm joined by Alvaro.
What's up, guys?
And we're back with the Scary Movie episode.
Yes.
It hasn't been that long, but it does always feel like a long time between them, right?
Yeah, it does.
Because, I mean, we did Evil Dead Rises, we did Knock at the Cabin, but this is its own kind of thing, you know, a movie like Talk to Me. This is a movie that feels evil, right?
I love that.
Knock at the Cabin is not evil, and it's more thrilling than anything. You know, and Evil Dead Rises is too much fun to actually take it serious.
I think Evil Dead would want to be in this kind of atmosphere that this movie lives in. It's what I think
sick and twisted, right? Exactly. But no, this is a special one right here. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I'm sure, you know, if you clicked on this episode, you know we're talking about Talk to Me, directorial debut, feature length, that is. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you looked into these guys much, but
the Racka brothers?
Yeah. Do you know about them before this? I'm not going to pretend I did.
No, I didn't, but I did because I was doing some research about them, trying to learn how to pronounce their names, that they're like ideally jackass variants of pranksters.
Go on. What do you mean by that?
No, like they used to make videos like Jackass, like they're pranksters.
I thought they were short films.
No, they used to make like prank videos.
I saw their YouTube channel and I saw like 86 million views on one of them. It's like something about Burger King tasting like McDonald's or whatever. And I just assumed it was some weird short film. I didn't even realize that they were pranksters.
Well, like what I'm talking about is like when they were kids. Like the stuff they first started getting known for and stuff like that. And then like,
I mean, I haven't done much research on them. We just saw this movie, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
And we haven't had much time to really even talk about it. When we walked out of the theater, I didn't say anything to you. I just kind of gave you like a nod of approval, you know? I was like, yes, very yes.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this a heck of a lot, man. What about you?
Yeah, I think I was excited for this movie coming up from like whenever the first trailers that we saw it, and I think it's always because I'm into just the horror genre as a general, as I know you are too, and it is always interesting to see. Obviously, this is produced by A24, how they are gonna kind of always shift their different ways for doing horror films now. I feel like they kind of have wanted to move away from it. Oh, it's so crazy, and like the ending that they got like to be known for. So this seemed a lot more up of type of movie, like you said, like Evil Dead Rising. And I didn't really know what to expect, but I really enjoyed this horror movie. I think this is kind of like up the alley of why I enjoy horror so much. It's just the right type of sick and twisted that I think I like. And I like the runtime a lot too.
Oh yeah, it's not very long. It doesn't overstay its welcome at all. It's totally just like pedal to the metal the whole time. And it's a very strong debut.
I think
These are two people who I feel as if they understand, you know, the craft. And I definitely think that they put that on display. Visually, this is a very exciting film. Acting wise too, the main performance here by Sophie Brown is exceptional. I think she takes the movie, what could be this really fun, sick and twisted horror movie, you know, crawl in your seat, good time type of movie. And she makes it she gives it that touch of emotion that you need for this to actually still be grounded in some type of realism. Care for the character. You know? Yeah, realism, I guess. But you're still grounded with this character and her struggles and what she's going through and how she is dealing with a lot of heavy emotions in her life at what appears to be a pretty young age. I don't believe she's 18 years old. I think they're like high school kids. It's kind of a blurred line, like at their high school, college kids or whatever. But, you know, she's very young and she's been through a lot, which is usually the basis for a lot of horror movies, right? Is people who are in grief and how that kind of overtakes them. But I think her performance really pushed this movie into being a great movie and not just a good movie.
Yeah. I think it reminded me of how I felt about Get Out at first, about Daniel Kaluuya's performance. And I know
this is only her fourth.
I was going to say she's even smaller than that, but I just really did feel like it's one of those effects when, because you haven't seen them in anything else, they embody the character more to you because this person feels a lot more real.
Yeah, and her character design as well is very unique. It's not the traditional protagonist that you would see in the movie, you know, like just kind of little punk, indie, alt girl, you know what I mean? You don't really get too many of them as the main characters of your movie, but, you know, she's more than that. She isn't just she's not just like an aesthetic, you know, she's actually a real character.
I did like the variants here, the two that were like Australian.
It was an Australian horror movie, right?
Yeah, so I think...
Foreign film.
It's a foreign film?
Foreign film.
So I think that's what you're talking about, like where it doesn't feel like the regular protagonist that we come to expect in Evil Dead, you know, when it's in LA. So these people are from LA. You're like, oh, okay, I know what kind of people these are. But,
you know, kind of a similar character to somebody like Beau from Beau is Afraid.
Yeah. In terms of
like their struggles and their anxieties and their depression and how it's overwhelming to them and how it affects how they see the world literally and figuratively. And it's just kind of a new era of main character, you know, and it's a very interesting choice. But yeah, this is a fantastic movie overall. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Very felt original to me, you know, it felt very original. I can't think of anything I've seen that was exactly like this, where it's like, oh, this movie is just the modern equivalent of this movie. Because I think the tone as well, maybe because they're YouTubers and stuff, like I think they can blend that comedy with extreme horror and not in a way like Evil Dead does, like in a way where it's not like, it's not hilarious funny, it's more of like douchey funny.
Yeah.
And then along with like just extremely cruel, unsettling horror aspects, you know, like visually.
I think this is a weird reference just because it's like the type of material that we're working with here, but like one of the Paul brothers, whenever they got in trouble for being in the Japanese forest, right? It's these two things that aren't supposed to be in each other, and that's why it almost feels more disrespectful.
I get
and
what
it's
you
like,
mean,
yeah, like the evil entity in this movie is so extremely evil.
And
I mean,
powerful.
it's honestly getting ahead of myself a little more, but what the evil is in this film, I think, is one of my favorite. Like, what is this thing that it evokes? Yeah. Where is it? Like, what is this? Like, is this hell? Like, what is this? So, I think for it to be like, you get so scared in the things that happen here, but then the people who are doing it is just an entertainment. It's a game, and so it comes off, like you said, extra douchey, but then also that's almost feels like the right way to modernize the world we live in. People don't like making movies in this era anymore, but that's like the way to do it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was going to get to that eventually, that I do think that this movie is a very modern movie and also will be very telling in about 20 years of like, this movie kind of embodies the youth of the time. That, yeah, these TikToking cringe ass teenagers really would smoke a joint holding this evil possessed fucking hand, you know, like to hold their joint or whatever, or like, you know,
they're partying with it.
Yeah, they're partying with this evil entity. Like, imagine if the Conjuring movie, they were like partying with Annabelle or whatever, you know.
And they like almost press on it more that they're doing it because they're like, no, there's a real hand under the cast. Like, they add more lore themselves.
They've added lore, yes. You know, I also kind of saw it as maybe a slight allegory to like drug addiction and stuff. I don't feel like it's it's not exactly heavy-handed, but come on. I mean, there's moments in this movie where like you could replace that thing with the crack pipe and I'd be like, yeah, that's the same story except it's drugs instead of a demon.
Yeah, which is like to some people interchangeable, drugs and demons, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if that was the intention because, like I said, I have done like zero research on this movie and it's what it was trying to say or do. I'm just going based off of my reaction to it. And I did kind of see that comparison, like just the desperation of like, people always say like, don't you know that those drugs are going to ruin your life or whatever? And it's like, yeah, duh, but I'm in a place where that is not something I care or think about,
I like that.
I saw that with this movie. Like,
I like that.
Yeah, like these people are willingly being possessed by demons because it's fun. And it's like that is how desensitized and just broken they are on the inside. And like maybe that's the reality for young people nowadays. It's like all this shit with the aliens, right? They're like, aliens are real, by the way. And I'm like, who fucking cares? Literally, who cares? I'll party with one right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
There was the joke of like, I'll snitch on one if he says the N word right now.
Yeah, like, bro,
let me catch one.
Aliens.
I'll cancel him.
We'll beat the shit out of him when he comes over here. Dude.
Yeah, he's like, he better not come to L.A.
Yeah, exactly. So
I do like that you brought that up.
Really embodied the moment, kind of how bodies did. And if it's douchey and pretend, or not douchey and pretentious, if it's douchey and cringe, I'm sorry, that's the outlook.
That's the era.
That's the era.
I'm just saying. No.
I'm in my flop era.
No, I do think that I like that you brought that up a lot, just because I think that is the driving force in this movie. Is that to anybody who is hurt, something like this could be seen as moments of being able to cure the pain. But when you're hurt in different ways than other people, and you've experienced some of like the evils that she does in this movie, it almost really comes telling, like you said, of the drugs, and almost like what something this serious could do in the wrong hands. And that's why I think I really like that you made that connection with the drugs, because I think honestly I hadn't really thought about that, but it does become very apparent.
When they're shooting these possession scenes like a montage in Project X, it's hard to not see it like that. Yeah.
And there is like what unfortunately does feel like realism, like you said. You could go on certain like on YouTube channels or maybe even Twitch, I'm not too sure, but like Ouija boards, right? They're just speaking like,
there's
obviously
somebody doing it on YouTube making content about like, all right guys, like and subscribe.
We're
gonna do a seance tonight.
Remember, like every time some celebrity dies, there's always that one guy who's like talking to him.
That piece of shit.
Yeah,
dude.
so like, isn't that the same thing? If like, because if in all reality in a horror movie, our evil, or I mean, our worst of fears are real. So it's the disrespect, the karma of like, you're gonna do stuff like that, and you don't know what's gonna like. So what if it did happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what the premise is of this horror movie, and I think for some weird reason that's tied into the realism that we have now.
Yeah, so we'll break this movie down a little bit. We'll obviously give you the synopsis, but this is not one where we can really go into it too much, because horror movies, come on, you don't want no spoilers, you don't want no surprises. I don't even want to try to oversell you on this movie. I just think it's very good. I'm not going to say it's the scariest movie of all time. I'm not going to do any of that right now, because it's like, come on, let's just go see this movie, like it's extremely good. And I know that they're marketing the hell out of it, because my Twitter, every time I refresh it, there it is. They're paying, Elon to
the most evil horror movie.
So they're marketing the hell out of this, and I actually do think it's worthy of going to see. And if you're kind of thirsty for a scary movie right now, you've already done the Barbenheimer thing and you're wondering what's next, this is the one right here for sure.
Yeah.
This movie capped off a fantastic week for us of within 5 days watching Barbie, Oppenheimer, and this movie. I was telling you off pod that I think this might be one of the strongest weeks I've ever gone to the movies, where it's not like these are my 3 favorite movies of all time or anywhere near. It's just that level of consistency of like, wow, I had a really good time every time I went.
And if you overarch just the summer,
I mean, really other than like Flamin' Hot and The Little Mermaid and a few other movies I've seen, like it's been a very good summer, and I've seen a lot of really good movies that I think will stick with me for many years. In 5 years, I'm pretty sure I'm still gonna like Talk to Me, and I'll be like, dude, it's even better than I thought it was the first time.
Asteroid City, Sanctuary.
Yeah, like I wanted to kind of be reserved when I watched the movie. I was like, okay, like this was very good, right? And I was just a little skeptical, because you never know. Horror trailers are not always the best. And I think because of the tonal shifts in this movie, it was kind of hard to tell in the trailer, like, what are you selling me? This like really fucked up possession, drug allegory story about a young woman who's going through a tragic loss, or is it this douchey Gen Z TikTok possession movie? You know,
I like that you brought that up because the trailer or some of the movie in bits when I walked out, I felt like I liked it the same way I liked The Empty Man.
mm-hmm.
So like what you're talking about, like, you know, the scene where the kids are on the bridge and any other horror movie, like roll my eyes. And that is like the parts of The Empty Man where I lived through them because I know now I know, you know, what The Empty Man is. So I understand that it is important. And this movie reminded me of that, where there was parts where the modernity that you're talking about, like even like specifically the music that they use, doesn't contrast like what you would expect in a horror movie, and almost kind of throws you out of the movie because you're like, that's some douchebag music that I would hear like right now, Three Doors Down, right? But then what you're talking about, it ends up really just showing you how, or like really just standing out how the pure, like the evil in this movie is.
Yeah, so I do think even though there's a lot of tonal shifts in this movie, that the Philippos really were able to kind of still grasp onto, like, we're going to have extreme moments of unsettling horror while also still having this very real, emotionally distressed story that, and a character that you feel for deeply because you can see what she's going through, and she's giving such a good performance with so much range in it that you just can't help but feel awful for this person, you know? And it's a very feels bad movie. You know, from the first 5 minutes, you're like, oh, they're so fucked. They're so fucked.
Yeah.
There's no chance they get out of this. You know, like, spoiler for a movie we did a very long time ago, Malignant. As evil and crazy as people like to pretend that movie is, it still has a happy ending. You know, she still wins in the end.
She conquers.
Which is fine. You know, I love that movie a lot. But when you double down on that cruelty of, like, and then they're fucked. And then you see the end, you're like, oh, dude, you know what I mean? Like no fucking break for this person, you know? Like, oh, they started off in a shit situation and they ended up 10 feet deep in a shit situation, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's extremely satisfying as well. Like the like anti-hero's journey, you know? Like just deeper and deeper into hell.
You know, another
like Dante's Inferno.
Another movie
with
that
no happy ending.
It reminded me of was Climax.
Yes. Just this like,
what is this?
Yeah, just like this fucking, just this trip into hell.
Like, you know. Honestly, this movie was to me what I thought Infinity Pool was gonna be. Like where like those scenes where like, oh, what the hell? Like this is great. Like what? Mm-hmm. And like and I know it's hard to live in that area because horror is, you know, it's one of the most like the genres that has been done very well a lot. It's been around for a long time, so it is hard to, you know, have these new things come up. But the horror elements of this movie, I did feel like The Sixth Sense, but like just modernized and better.
Yeah, just changing the format, you know, like building off of what already exists and still finding a way to keep it fresh.
Yeah, and like even when it comes to the aspect, I don't think this is spoiling anything, like The Hand. I just did really like that there's, again, the mystical lore around the hand.
So simplistic, but still so much, you know, by the end of the movie, you're like, what the fuck was that, right?
Like, because what is it just, like, you know, is it just clay? It's somebody's hand? Just stuff like that you like. And
how did these teenagers come into possession of this?
Yeah, and even because, like, the way they describe it, you know, there's lore there, and like that's the depth to stories that you don't expect in 95-minute runtime.
Yeah, it was very similar to The Empty Man, like in the way it operated.
Yeah,
you know?
Like how it caught my attention, and how there's moments where during the movie was like, is this gonna start going another way? And then nope, back into like it never I see.
Loses focus either. It stays on its course and it knows what it's doing. Like the marketing around this movie, it's like grabs you by the hand and drags you straight to hell. And yes, that is correct.
It's like it puts you in her shoes, right? And you become very vulnerable. You know, you're in a horror film. I told you, it's like it reminded me of Hereditary, even like from the beginning. I guess starting with someone's dead. This isn't good.
Yeah. What do you think about these comparisons to Hereditary? I think they're easy to make because it's A24. It's just, you know, enough time has passed where here's the new scariest movie of all time, you know, whatever. Because I do see how
they could think that, yeah.
People are pushing that. The agenda is there now, you know, like the talk to me, like to see people saying like it was the first time in a long time I had to remind myself like I could get up and leave right now. I don't have to sit here and watch this. Like this is how scary this is.
I winced twice, which I haven't done in a long time. Like where I was like, oh, like that, like oh damn, like and I take that as in like this is really good because like stuff doesn't make me feel like that. Like Titan did when she puts the thing through his like when she's stabbing them, and like very few movies I'm like oh I'm there, or the same thing in Us. There's certain moments, and then this movie made me feel like that, and I think I can't really I can't tell you what movie is gonna make that feeling for me, but that's how I dictate when I really like one. Yeah. And the Hereditary comparisons, what you were saying is we've talked about it before. I just think it's he I think got people thinking a different way on how to approach horror, and I don't think it's maybe on purpose to connect it to Hereditary. I just think they're similar tropes, but I don't think it's hard. It's a hard comparison.
Hereditary, I think it follows. It's the only similarities is that it's a possession movie about a person who's going through loss, and it's like okay, there's been a million movies since Hereditary just like that. The difference is that they're not exceptional. Yeah, they were just fine.
I would say
they don't feel original because there was nothing special about them. They were just solid or less than solid movies about. I mean. Honestly, most horror movies are about people who are going through some kind of trauma or loss. Like a huge percent of them.
I'd argue this movie maybe is even more like Midsommar.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the characters.
I get you. Like her arc, right?
More than Hereditary.
Yeah.
Like the story beats are more like Hereditary, but the character development would be more like Midsommar. Yeah. If you were to compare it to something.
So let's do the plot, just a light synopsis of it. So we have this 16 to 18-year-old girl, Sophie, right? Her mother died 2 years ago to what she believes is sleeping pills, but it's never truly been revealed to her. So she's at a very low point in her life. She has these friends that she's really connected to. They're like her extended family, and they go to a party one night because there's this what is like the equivalent of like a creepypasta, right? Like there's the TikTok trend going around of their friends who supposedly have this possessed hand. Is it real? Is it not real? So they go and they find out it's fucking real, right?
Naturally, on the day that her mom had celebrating her death, right?
Yes, exactly. So
tragedy.
2-year anniversary, really selling it. And I think that's what you mean about the Midsommar thing, right? Like it wasn't Hereditary-ish where it was like, oh, she hated her mom and now she's grappling how she felt about that. Like, no, this is a person who loved their family. And it's a different way to tell that type of story. So,
exactly.
Like, yeah, it's very fucking real, right? And then that's where, like, the drug allegory kind of comes in for me, at least. Like I said, that's just my opinion. If they end up saying that is what it's about, I'd like to coin that I was ahead of the curve on that one. I put on my cinephile hat and I was like, really? Talk to me as a drug allegory.
The reason I do see it though too is because the connection that I made the strongest with that is that they enjoy what they're getting out of the hand. It's not like they're scared of it, and you think you would be scared of it.
Yeah.
In the same way that in a drug, you know what drugs do to you. Yeah, you know what drugs do to you, yeah. And like it at the moment, be like it does feel like you're riding the pink dragon. Yeah, but you know what you're doing. Yeah, right?
You're really not scared of crank. That's pretty nuts.
And so like I said, the hand's very real.
The hand is very real. She becomes addicted to it. Horror ensues, insert the chaos, right?
Insert the innocent bystander that has to suffer.
The casualties of possession, right? And then, how are we going to fix this, right? So It's a very simple story because it is a concept that has been done a million times. But like I said, it's the acting, it's the visuals, it's the pace, it's the tonal shifts. That's what makes this a movie really worth watching. And like I said, I don't want to get into anything about the lore or what happens to who. This is just go in as blank as possible and just, go along for the ride. Let it take your hand and guide you.
This movie was, I think, a perfect example of when I give it to you, it's going to be worth the build-up. Like the moments of violence are going to be worth. It's like similar to like in Midsommar. You're like, this is a horror movie, and then you see them jump off the fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean, this movie though is pretty consistently like with its pacing. Like
it'll show you to you.
Boom, scare. Da 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 da. Boom, scare. Da 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 da. Boom, scare, and not anything cheap.
No, yeah, that's what I mean though. It's like
maybe
even
there's one. I think there was one jump scare that got me because you looked over at me like, what happened? And I was like, it was loud as fuck. Wait, was it even in the movie though? I think it might have been the trailer, honestly.
Yeah, see,
I think it was a trailer.
I can't give it the credit that it's
See, so I think it was the trailer, so I'm not even going to discredit this movie if there was some cheap jump scare. And I think it was the trailer for
the Haunted
Stupid
Mansion.
Nun movie.
Oh,
because it was just like, boom, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah. So this movie, though, it's all thrills, all chills, no frills. You know what I mean? Just this fucking heater.
And it does, again, without giving out spoilers, the Empty Man type of, let me give you the story.
Yeah. There's a twist. Very twisty. You know what I mean? So
Prologue.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. But it's just such a good time, man. Like if you're just itching for a horror movie, maybe Evil Dead Rises and Knock at the Cabin and whatever else like Netflix and Hulu have put out or whatever is not really been your cup of tea, and you're just looking for that evil itch, you know, you're like, I need something cruel and wicked. This is it for sure. And like A24, strong contender, you know, like you just put out Past Lives and then you put out this, and it's like, yes. As much as I love A24 for making movies like Past Lives and Everything Everywhere All at Once, I do kind of think of them as like the standard for horror nowadays, at least in my eyes and many other people on the internets. But it's because they make really interesting movies and they distribute really interesting movies. I know that's always the like, hey, you can't give them credit that they made the movie, but you know, they play a huge part in marketing it and distributing it, and that is just as important as who made it.
That argument just feels dated, though, too, because now they are very more involved in most. Unless you're watching Sharper, which was thrown on Apple TV, you'll know which ones they've actually have had more input than others.
Yeah, so just felt good, nice rhythm, you know. I just was like, I needed this, you know. I needed a good little reset on some good horror before we get hopefully some good horror movies. I mean, the landscape actually looks pretty bleak after this because we started seeing all of the trailers for other horror movies, and it's like, Disney, what are you doing releasing The Haunted Mansion in July? Whoever decided that should lose their job. Why the fuck would you not release that from Halloween to December?
Exactly.
Duh, right?
They're
but
so
then also
cooked.
you have like the Exorcist movie, right? Like,
Yeah.
it looks bad. I mean, the music almost gets you when you're listening to it in the theater. Like, I just might, you know. But
that's how they get you.
Like, no,
Nostalgia.
No, yeah, because that
The
music is so fucking
member-berries.
good,
Yeah, it is good.
right? But then like the Nun movie, no thanks. I didn't see the Pope's Exorcist. I didn't see Nefarious, you know.
Had a friend ask me, what is the next horror movie in the slate they're looking forward to, and then I couldn't give an answer.
Whatever it is, I don't even know that it exists right now.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't know it exists right now. That's exactly there's. I'm sure I'm like, is Yorgos Lanthimos movie a horror movie?
No, it's not.
So, you know.
So even like the mainstream horror that we have enjoyed lately, that doesn't scratch the same itch.
No, I wanted Ennis Men to
Scream-
do that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Scream and Evil Dead Rises did not give me the same thing that I wanted Ennis Men to give me. And Ennis Men didn't give it to me either, you know?
No, and this did.
Yeah.
And but it I wasn't expected because of what you said. The trailer is this movie feels like it would be a movie that the studios would have, the bigger studios like Miramax would have dropped as like a movie that got forgotten.
I had told you too that I was like, I want to see it, but don't be surprised if it's not good, you know, because I had heard the word of mouth that like, oh, this movie's fucking really scary, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but that is kind of the marketing campaign for any respectable horror movie. Honestly, they try to push that. So that's like a baseline, you know, if you're hearing that, you're like, okay, it must be half decent. Right?
Every horror movie they do that for, yeah.
Yeah.
What I forgot what movie came out recently. It was a horror movie that I don't think both of us had. Oh, it was the new Conjuring movie. They, you know how they always do the Insidious. Sorry,
Yeah.
they always show the
I
like,
forgot that movie existed.
the like people reacting in the movie theater. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
that's what trying to sell what you're saying. Like, look how scary this movie is. We could we would definitely wouldn't have paid these people to do those reactions. We would never do something like
Yeah, so this just felt like a nice change of pace too, because it's like nice, a small movie, very indie, right?
that. Yeah.
Very visually interesting. horror sequences that like kind of reminiscent to things like Rosemary's Baby.
Yep.
You know, like you can see the homages to other films, which is always nice in horror because you just got to respect the greats. You got to respect history, right? So there were certain sequences in there where I'm like, that reminds me of like Rosemary's Baby. There was also just other things like, yeah, of course, Hereditary. Like you said, you know, The Exorcist. You can smell the inspiration on it, but
This reminded
still
me
original enough.
of our evoked winner of the bracket, The Wailing, in a way too, just to be able the realness of this evil.
Yeah. Very, I wouldn't say realistic, but just like it feels so powerful, but it also felt so personal.
Yeah.
You know? Like I would buy it if in the universe of this movie no one believed it was happening.
Exactly.
You know? Like even the Empty Man, the cop's like, you can feel it in the cosmos. You
But-
know what I mean? There's like a shift in the universe's balance.
And I do think that is just well directed because it's the fact that the movie starts with them looking at it on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, me and you saw something on TikTok. That's the same way we would talk about it.
Well, you
but-
know, here's a piece of local lore for me and Alvaro here. There had always been this place that when we were young referred to that was like a haunted place to go to, Black Star Canyon,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of lore, right?
Lord.
And many people went and checked it out, right? And there's people I know, and I'm sure people you know who went and they say they have stories or whatever, but there wasn't TikTok back then in 2006 and 7 and 8 or whatever, you know? So it wasn't an idea of like, let's go to this place that is supposedly haunted and make content, you know? Which is what you say, like, that's why it's very Logan Paul. It's like, it's disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Something about it that's so gross. But
It's the content creation.
like that place, Black Star Canyon. Had you heard lore about this place? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, I've heard.
What is the thing you've heard about this place?
Our mutual friend that we used to have in high school, said that he went there late at night and there's no lights there, so it just feels like there's people around you. But I'm like, that's because you're telling yourself that.
Okay, go
you know?
camping. You feel that too.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
because
I'd always
there
heard-
is animals around.
Yeah, you know, I'd always heard that there was like the people who were on that property were very creepy. You know, like
KKK stuff too.
yeah, I heard all types of things, but no one I know has ever actually had a concrete experience of like, yeah, that happened. And like I've never seen it brought up in places where like it mattered, you know? No one's ever mentioned it. Like if you type it in, no one's ever like Black Star Canyon haunted.
Yeah, it's always just local lore.
It's just local lore, you know?
You know, because that's what we like to do.
And this movie felt like that. Where it's like, this is local lore. Like, you know, you use throughout the whole movie, you're like, this just feels so small and personal, even though the evil in this feels God level. You know what I mean?
Another like movie, just like a killing of a sacred deer. The purity that was broken here is so bad that the evil evoked here only lives within this family.
Yeah.
And everybody else would be like, why are their eyes bleeding? Everybody else like, why are their eyes bleeding like that? But the dad knows what he did. And
That's a good example. Yeah. Of because like a movie like The Conjuring or whatever, you know, they're like, why don't we just go to a hotel? And then the plot logic is always like, because it'll follow you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Get
yeah,
that.
oh, I guess that makes sense. You know, but like I actually do kind of think that these horror movies feel more grounded because like, yeah, like a personal evil that's inside of you or like born from within you,
Yup.
you know? So then it is like your own personal nightmare.
It's the mental,
Versus
bro.
this idea of like the collective nightmare that like everybody, if no, that's a demon crawling out of your attic. I saw it. You know,
Yeah. Guys, you're gonna want to see this.
Yeah. Insidious when they record it all, you know, and they capture it on video and stuff. Yeah, like this is not that. Like this is one of those like creepy pasta where you're like, no, that didn't happen. Like, it happened.
Courage the cowardly ass dog.
Yeah, exactly. In the middle
Only
of nowhere.
happens to him.
This is why I don't go to Australia, bro. Snakes,
See,
monkeys,
huge spiders,
fuck me hands.
fires,
Hell no, you can't catch me in Australia.
people with those accents.
Yeah.
No drip.
No drip.
No drip.
When it's summer here, it's winter there. The fuck is that?
Just
You're on schedule,
reversed.
dude.
I mean, fucking with the kangaroos.
That's when I was like, Australian ass movie.
Yeah, I respect it. You know what?
because,
That's why I like it.
You know, us has scary movies do this. Killing of a Sacred
Always.
Deer. There's the deer in the beginning that's dead, right? Get Out has the doe.
The lighthouse.
The Lighthouse has the seagulls and stuff. Fucking
The witch.
The Witch has the goat, right? Us has those rabbits. Australian
Northman.
ass movie. Kangaroo dog.
Yep. And I love it.
Yeah. I know, right? Even Hereditary, you're like, what was that thing in the road? You know, like, was it a person? Was it an animal? Like, that's a classic horror trope. But then to add that freshness, they're like, hey, I've never seen a kangaroo before.
And it's the same thing, right? This breakingness of like sacredness of something so willingly good, which are animals are always seen
That's
like that in
always
movies.
What it's meant to evoke.
Yeah, be like, look at this innocent bystander.
Yeah.
And but I just think obviously what we're getting at with talking about all these movies surrounding it is that it seems to have taken a lot of what works for those movies that obviously, like you said, there's not a direct comparison here. I do really like what I feel like the uniqueness to this movie, but there is tropes here and the way that they pulled things off that they've obviously have studied the genre.
You know, I do think that this is going to be an influential horror movie, much like Hereditary. I do think that this is going to be one in 10 years that people look back on and they're like, yeah, like this changed some things.
I told you that I had seen the Australian It Follows. I feel like It Follows is you could say it inspired this movie. You know, like you said, it'd be like It Follows. You're like, oh, it's about STDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's about AIDS.
Oh, and that's not something that a lot of times when especially in this middle region of the aughts, the horror movies became the collective, like you said. No, it's this weird, creepy kid. Yeah. It's like she's real. But then now it's kind of gone back to, like, you know, Alfred Hitchcock. Like, no, the Vertigo is like, he's the horror's within, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's gone back to that, which I do feel is grounded. I mean, well, maybe it's always been there, but we watch movies that at that budget right now, and A24, like you said, is forefronting the horror movies that feel like we watch Rosemary's Baby of now, you know?
Yeah, they're definitely doing the most interesting work in horror. I believe so. I mean, could be wrong. I guess I could go back and look and be like, oh, actually, it's Neon, or oh, it's this company or whatever. But yeah, it's Art the Clown. Like, here I am shilling for A24 because they made a good fucking movie. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, it's not based off of, you always walk in there with a blank slate, you know. Sometimes even like something like Past Lives, like they swear this movie's so good, and then you watch it, oh my god. Yeah. Who would have thought? Yeah, so I mean, having quote unquote the finger on the pulse, obviously big studios became that because they did that for a while. And that's, I think, what A24 has been on a pretty solid run for us, at least for a long time now. It's been ever since I feel like The Green Knight, where we feel like anything they drop with, we're ready there. We'll check it out.
Like, I feel like there has been a pickup in consistency in their movies, because one of the things that held me back on this movie a bit, I'm like, I don't know. I still think that there's a possibility that they'll have a huge miss.
Yeah.
Like, and it could have been this.
Yeah.
But is in good hands.
I mean, that's how we give Neon the same leash, and that's why we were excited for Ennis Men. We see something that looks already the way me and you like want it to look, and you already want to give it the bias. This is gonna be sick and twisted. Pool? Yeah.
You're like, oh, look, they made my favorite movie.
Oh yeah.
This movie was made for me.
The title, dope.
Yeah.
The
way
it looks,
kind of sicko.
And then it comes on, you're
I'm crazier than the movie. Oh man, what's wrong with me?
Bo was afraid of.
Nice. I think that kind of wraps it up. You can't really go into too much detail without giving this movie away, and that would be no fun. So, I say definitely rush to go see Talk to Me. If you can't even see Barbie and Oppenheimer, just because they are fucking absorbing the cinema, you'll definitely be able to get tickets to this one. We did an advanced screening, so I'm not even sure. It's out this week, right?
Yeah.
If you're hearing this episode, it's already out, right?
It came out tonight. Yeah,
okay,
today.
Cool. So we saw this movie a few days early, but we kind of had a semi-full audience. I do think that, you know, those early access screenings always do bring people out, and I do think that the word of mouth on this movie is big enough to carry it. So I think my prediction is that it's going to be a slow burn, because it's going to be the counter programming to Barbie and Oppenheimer, where it's like, what's the scary movie? I guess I'll see this, right?
Yeah.
Because the only other thing that's coming out is like Ninja Turtles and Haunted Mansion and stuff. So this is the only movie that isn't like mainstream, even though A24 is extremely popular now. It's still the only thing that feels different.
Yeah.
You know,
And Sound of
I
Freedom.
love Barbie and Oppenheimer, but like Oppenheimer feels like a movie Oliver Stone could have made in the 90s. Barbie could have been a movie like for the 80s to now. I'm surprised there hasn't been a Barbie movie. Like in the 80s, they didn't make one like Masters of the Universe or whatever. Like just some Howard the Duck ass Barbie movie. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other two movies like Haunted Mansion. Yeah, like I'm not surprised that movie.
What about Sound of
right?
Freedom?
Like that's a pretty basic Disney movie. And then Ninja Turtles, okay, it's just a cartoon or whatever, right? Like a cool cartoon movie. So this is the only thing that isn't just like your basic 4-quadrant movie. Like I don't know who this movie's for except for like sickos and horror fans, you know?
Yeah, the people who are waiting for a horror film in July.
It's going to be quite a bit. There always is horror.
No, yeah, I think the summer horror movie is a trope in itself.
Poltergeist being one of the best.
You gotta watch a really good horror movie in the summer. You stay up late at night. You gotta be scared.
Yeah, sick, man. I would have loved to be in high school or middle school and seen this movie like at midnight, you know, and then had to
Been their age.
Yeah, like been their age of like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? Like
This is something we would have brought it to the parties.
this movie would have been like, I am gonna sleep with the lights on tonight. You know what I mean? I would be scared of it like 20 minutes still after we left. Like in the car, I'd be like, it's behind me, isn't it?
It's behind me, isn't it?
You know, when my mom would be like, hey, go throw out the trash, and I had to walk around the corner and down the house, I'd be like,
Hashling slash.
it's gonna be there, dude.
Yeah.
It's for sure gonna be there.
Nosferatu. No,
This fictional item from this fake movie I saw is definitely going to be waiting for me in
it's
the real
exactly
world.
like that.
And it's going to be exactly the same thing.
You got all the same powers.
I always used to think that with My Bloody Valentine, dude. I mean,
Oh.
I'm going to turn around the corner and that fucking headlight's going to be there looking at me and I'm so fucked.
I wanted to bring up just because we've brought him up on the podcast before. You're like one of the saints, you know, the cinema also, Sean Fennessy. They were talking about movies in the second part of the year. And then someone like, how come you didn't bring up Talk to Me? He's like, because I saw it early, so it doesn't count for me. Like, it's like it was already part of this half of like because he said it was the best horror movie since Barbarian. And it has that type of. I mean, Barbarian was obviously not A24, not any of the of independent quote unquote horror.
It didn't come from the two popular indie studios.
Yeah, like horror indie studios, you know, and but this one did, so I do think it might even have the bigger.
That's
hype.
interesting. I haven't checked in on what they've been saying over there, but I will. What I didn't know about this movie is one of the last things I'll say is that it was the Adelaide Film Festival in Australia last year. So some people consider it a 2022 movie, but I'm counting it as 2023.
It's like Sanctuary.
And it definitely, it's up there. You know, it's really up there. My top 10's almost filled out, dude. But so I'm like, I don't know. We'll see if some of these get taken out, but it's gonna be interesting because like just this past month of July, like picked up what I thought was like a pretty awful year. So
You know, it's like interesting just because referencing to an episode or episodes earlier in the year. Like I remember you saying like you really like Scream, and now it seems like it's not because it's not good, but it just felt like all of these are just.
I
obvious.
love Scream 6, but there is like it's like Barbie and Oppenheimer, you know, where I'm like, okay, I love Barbie, but like be for real. Come on, be serious. No. Talk to me 10 times better. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And no, but like it's the same, the interesting scope of like I love these equally for different reasons, but you start to
if I have
like,
to pick a child, like, that's my favorite one.
the one that's unique, probably.
Yeah.
The one that doesn't have 6 other ones or 5 other ones.
Yeah. Like you don't need me to champion you. You're doing fine, Scream.
Yeah.
You know?
Ghostface as well.
Yeah.
So
like, you made a great Scream movie. Like this is a great unique movie. Like, so you're always gonna win me on that.
yeah, and so yeah, it is interesting how it's shifted. Definitely, like John Wick is still one of my favorite movies of the year, but stuff that is comparable is now here. You know, but before I felt like it was it was sitting there for a while where I was like,
It's
I
still
should really
up there
enjoy
for
this.
me because it's like even though it's not the other type of movie, it is the pinnacle of what kind of movie.
You said the movie's movie.
Always respect that.
The most movie a movie can
Yeah,
be.
like it is the most action movie ever. Be like, you know,
Oh,
not
yeah,
ever,
whatever,
like,
but
you know, for me,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
this is the pinnacle of action. So then I have to respect that.
Every time I'm like, was it that good? I remember.
It was that
I remember
good.
the scene with
Yeah.
the Dragonfire shotgun shells.
The scene in the Tokyo hotel.
That's the coolest thing I've seen. That's like,
So that wraps this up. Definitely go check this movie out. I mean, there's a bunch of good movies to go see right now, and it's hot as fuck. So, you know, the only one I'm not gonna recommend is Sound of Freedom. But go ahead and
I don't
check this
think
movie out,
it
man.
doesn't even need shilling either.
Yeah.
Apparently, people are down too.
The
movies are so bad.
Paul Schrader loves it. The movies are so bad. There's so many options.
God, man.
All right, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you think. Hopefully, you see this movie. Let us know. Bye-bye.
Bye.